Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're looking at an absolute banger. We're looking at Trouble on the Tracks. So, this was put out onto DVD on April 8th of 2014, and shockingly, the Universal reprint date is on here. That was October 1st of 2014. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This actually was the very last release to be put up by Lionsgate, so bit of a sad moment, but I think it was time for them to get a new distributor just to freshen things up. But yeah, they did go out with an absolute bang though, because this release is awesome. So let's take a look here. So at the top there, you can't really see it. Sorry. We have 5 new never before seen adventures. They had this same thing on Spills and Thrills. We hadn't seen those episodes before in the US, but this is actually this little thing up here is actually true because we hadn't seen these anywhere in the world. This is the first time that we're seeing season 18 content anywhere, so that's pretty cool. There's also a price tag up there. Fox, I don't know what significance that has because this is put up by Lionsgate. I assume they might be meaning 20th Century Fox. I don't know. But then you also got $9.98 right there. There's also another sticker right here. Back in the day, this was a Sam's Club exclusive. So this is part of that trend where they release like 5 or 6 episodes of the next season early. They did this with Railway Mischief. Season 17 came out officially in August or September, I believe, of 2013. And Railway Mischief had 5 episodes from season 17. That was put out in April of 2013. Same with this. Season 18 came out in the UK in, I believe, September, maybe August, I don't know, around that time of 2014, and the same thing will happen with Whale of a Tale. Those episodes are part of season 19, and season 19, that might have started airing earlier, I don't know, but it's kind of a trend, and they were also all retailer exclusives. This was both a Sam's Club exclusive and a Walmart exclusive, same thing with Railway Mischief and Whale of a Tale. Oh, that was a lot. Up there, we got the Thomas logo. See it right there. Trouble on the Tracks. The price tag's kind of covering it, but oh well. I forgot to mention this with the sticker right here. Sam's Club doesn't sell the DVDs anymore, so these stickers, if you still have them, especially on a slipcover, are extraordinarily rare and very valuable. It looks like the previous owner tried to tear this one off, but thank goodness they didn't, because that would have A, ruined the slipcover, and B, taken away the value, so whatever. We got Thomas and some Troublesome Trucks here going up Gordon's Hill. Thomas isn't really on the tracks, but oh well. The Troublesome Trucks are making some absolutely hilarious faces. This poster art is really, really cool. I think this is probably one of the best DVD poster arts. It's awesome. I love it. It's so vibrant and colorful too. Excuse me, let me reach around my computer here. Got the Hit Entertainment logo, Thomas and Friends logo. It's kind of like glowing. Trouble on the Tracks, Thomas, Lionsgate. It's the same on this side. On the back here, Thomas and Friends logo again, Railway Mix-Ups and Slip-Ups. We got this really weird promo of Thomas and then Clarabelle for some reason. That should be Annie. I don't know why Clarabelle is here. You can tell because she's got this part here. I believe that's where the guard goes. So it's strange, but whatever. Our bonus features are the Earl's Quiz and Guess Who puzzles. I wish they did mention like Mr. Perkins and Who's That Engine and stuff, but oh well, who cares. So let's take the slipcover off. I'll just chuck it on the stand right back there. Sorry, I just brushed the top of the mic. And here is just the standard case. It's a lot more like pixelated. I don't know if you can really see that, but it just doesn't have that bar at the top there. So, yep, same as always. So we'll open it up here. Here is the disc. Pretty standard. And yep, it's an eco case, but I believe this is the last eco case in this style. Universal, they will actually start to fill in the entire case, but the plastic they use is very, very bad. It tends to like warp on itself. I don't really know how to describe it, but it just doesn't, the cases don't close all the way, and it's very, very cheap, but at least the disc is somewhat protected now, so that's kind of cool. But yes, what episodes do we have on here? We have Thomas the Core Engine, Not So Slow Coaches, Flatbeds of Fear, Disappearing Diesels, and Toad's Adventure. And in the UK and other countries, this was released in besides Italy and Canada, we also had Duck on the Slip Coaches and Missing Gator. This release was put out in the UK in 2015, so it made sense why Gator was included on this release. Although I will mention some Tell the Brave stuff later on because there's some continuity that's a bit screwed up, but whatever. So, let's go through here. So, I did my normal thing. I sat down, watched the DVD, and just took bullet points. So I'm just going to read through those. So, move my mic. Thomas the Core Engine. Oh my god, this episode is amazing. First of all, the animation is so much better. There are still a couple of goofs, for example, in the scene where Diesel and Mavis leave the quarry together for the first time. Well, the only time they leave together. There's a shot where Diesel has a brake van behind him. I don't know why he needs a brake van because he has a lamp at the back, so whatever. And then for the rest of the episode, he doesn't have it, so that's kind of weird there, but everything moves a lot smoother. I was complaining a lot in season 17, and I think in King of the Railway. I know it happened there, but I don't think I mentioned that in the episode. That was a long time ago, though. But everything moved back then. It moved really choppy, for example. We'll just take Diesel here. He would go like, It was just very choppy, and you can tell it wasn't like the most expensive animation, but here it's a lot better, a lot smoother. The lighting is also a lot more vibrant, and it's just overall much prettier. So I'll probably say this for a lot of future stories, and I have said this for previous stories, but this really feels like a season 3 or 4 episode. I don't know. It's just swapping. This is kind of like the Switch where they swap a character and swap their jobs or whatever, but I just get classic series vibes from this episode. I don't know what it is, but it's a very simple story. It's very in character for everybody, and I just think it would fit right in season 3. So, speaking of characters, this is kind of like the era where Thomas's character gets shifted around for the past, like 20 plus years almost. No, it wasn't 20 years. It's been like almost 15 years. So ever since like season 6, he hasn't really had like a personality. I really like in the classic series how he was like this really cheeky and impatient guy, and that really shows in this episode. But he also has that maturity that he gained in like season 5 and such, or he gradually gained it over time. But I think this episode was a really good balance of Thomas's old personality and somewhat of his new personality, like his more experience. I don't want to say he's mature because Thomas still isn't mature, but he's more experienced. And yeah, I just felt Thomas was handled very well here, as in many other episodes on this release. And speaking of Thomas, Martin Sherman is also a lot better this season. I feel like in season 17, he wasn't fully like adjusted to the new format, but here he's very snarky and very like, I wouldn't say childish because it's just that he was experienced, but he feels very Thomas here, and I like that. I've been speaking a lot about character dynamics this season, or these past few episodes, but the dynamic between Diesel and Mavis is really, really good. That really feels like Christopher Audrey pairing. That'd be kind of cool to see in a classic series episode. We did see them in Mavis a little bit, but that was really it. But here, they have really good chemistry, and I would have loved to see more of them. The Runaway and the Crash are great, and I really love how the Troublesome Trucks are getting more roles. I also I really like the bit of realism where Thomas's brake van wasn't strong enough to stop the train. That is something that I think even like season 5 and 6 were lacking. Like, they hardly ever mention the brake van, so I'm glad that our good old friend Andrew Brenner mentioned them here. This was also Henrietta's first appearance with a face. I remember back in 2014, this was a really, really big deal. And I really, really like it. It kind of feels, because I've been so used to having her with a face, seeing her without the face, or without a face in these CGI seasons is really weird and kind of like ominous. Like Toby's just talking to this coach that doesn't even have a face, I think. I thought that was really weird. I apologize for that stuttering, but I feel like this is probably one of the better decisions the team made over the past few years they were working on the show. And it really just adds a lot of personality to Toby. And the two have great chemistry with each other. We won't see that until like Signals Crossed and The Truth About Toby, but they really feel like an old couple, and I like that a lot. Speaking of Toby, one of the only complaints about this episode is the fact that Toby is taking the workmen home for their supper, and it's not even noon. What? I was even confused by that when I first saw the episode back in the day. I was like, what? What? Supper? It's not even noon. I mean, lunch would make a little more sense. Maybe people in the UK call lunch supper. I don't know, but where I come from, supper is usually dinner, and that's usually eaten at like 6 o'clock, so I don't know what's going on here, but oh well. That's really all I have here. One more little point I want to mention is the ending of the episode. It feels almost exactly like the ending of Mavis. I don't know what it is. It just, that whole like Sir Topham Hatt will allow Mavis to take the trains further than she's usually working. I like that a lot. I also like how we end with a song, and this is really the first time that the characters themselves sing, and they all do a really good job. So yeah, really, really great story. Probably one of the best from the season, and probably one of the best from the entire CGI series. Gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10 because Toby taking the workmen home for supper at like 11 o'clock is incredibly stupid to me, but whatever. I also forgot to mention the bonus features on here. So we have Calling All Engines, Sir Topham Hatt shouts out Paxton and Salty. We got Mr. Perkins' story time for Pop Goes the Diesel. We got Who's That Engine for Henry, Mr. Perkins' postcard, The Diesel Works. The Earl's Quiz, Percy's New Friends, and Slippy Sodor, and Guess Who Puzzles. Oh, I didn't watch the Guess Who Puzzles, but those characters, I'm just reading the wiki. But those characters are Mavis, Thomas, James, and Toby. So, yeah, I'm going to try and breeze through these here because we're getting pretty up there in the length, and I got to get this bad boy uploaded. Not So Slow Coaches. Oh, another banger story. I really love the bond between Thomas, Annie, and Clarabelle. That's probably one of the most iconic things from the Thomas series, and here it's handled extremely well. I never thought that a Thomas episode would make me almost cry and have goosebumps for a prolonged period of time, but this episode is so great at keeping you on the edge of your seat, and you actually feel like Thomas won't get Annie and Clarabelle back. Like, the execution is incredibly well done. The acting is great. That moment, just after Connor and Caitlin leave Walsworth Station. Excuse me. I'm getting choked up. No. But that moment after those two leave Walsworth Station and Thomas comes up behind him, he's like, no! I almost want to cry every single time I hear that because the acting is very well done. It's a very heartwarming and emotional story, and I love it. Again, I really, really like Thomas's character. He is cheeky, but he can also be a very charismatic character, and I like that a lot. Another thing that I'm really grateful for is that this is Charlie's last speaking role in an episode ever. He does cameo in episodes. I think he cameos in like Disappearing Diesels on this, maybe? I know it's another episode on this release, but I don't remember exactly. But he doesn't speak. He only ever sings in The Great Race, but that's it. He never talks again, which is a blessing. The joke he tells here isn't that bad, but it's still not great, and I'm kind of glad that we never heard from him again. Oh, another thing I want to mention, speaking of Charlie, that's English. How the hell did he not notice he was shunting Annie and Clarabelle? And what stupid workman coupled them up to Caitlin's coaches? That is a really big complaint I have with this episode. But it does not change my score for some reason. I don't know why, but I can't give this episode lower than a 10 out of 10. It is fantastic. And I digress, because the episode is filled with some great emotion, great music, voice acting, writing. It's really, really great. Another banger. Definitely one of my top 10 favorites. So, yep, 10 out of 10. It's great. Flatbeds of Fear. I don't like it. This is probably one of the worst episodes of the CGI. Well, I don't know about the entire CGI series, but definitely like the Brenner era. One of the only positives I have to say about this episode is that the fog looks much better than it did in Spencer the Grand. I remember I was complaining about how you couldn't see anything, and yeah, that was the point of the story, but it makes for a terrible viewing experience. But here, it's a lot better. You can actually see a lot more stuff, and it still feels relatively spooky, but not really. Another thing that I really like is Cranky. His deadpan personality is so funny. He's like, "Oh, you guys are idiots. You're so stupid." I love Cranky. He's a great character. Yeah, I don't have many points about this episode, but I really don't like how Henry was handled here. You know, we haven't talked about this episode yet, but if you've seen Henry's Hero, you know he goes through so much in that story. He overcomes all adversity, and he comes out like a mega Chad. But here, he's back to being a scaredy, whiny little baby, and I really, really don't like it. It feels very like a Miller era. In fact, this entire episode feels like a Nitrogen episode. There's rhyming, like where Henry says, "I don't want to hear the Flatbeds of Fear." He says that like 9 times, and it's annoying. It's got a 3 strikes plot, and the characters don't act like themselves, and it's just, it's horrible. This is also, the story itself is also very cliche to just normal kids shows, where they have to deal with like pipes, and they're like, "Oh, what made that noise? Is it a ghost? It's scary." The spookiness just isn't present here at all. I'm sure even a little kid could tell from the very first scene what was making the noise. How stupid are these characters? I don't understand. Yeah, this episode, it's bad. It's not the worst, but it leaves a lot to be desired, so I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. It pains me to give an episode from this era such a low score, but it's so bad. It's really not good. Disappearing Diesels. I used to really like this episode. It's not as good as I used to think it is, but it's still a very good story. A little minor thing. I like how the show is actually using some bigger words. They're not anything crazy like from a thesaurus or anything, but we don't really hear words. This goes for all the episodes from this era, but we don't hear words like reputation or revolutionary used. We haven't really heard that kind of language used in the past like 15-20 years, so it's nice to see that again. More character dynamics. I love the dynamic between Paxton and Diesel. Very, very fun. So I do like this episode, like I said earlier, but I do feel it's a bit forced and a bit too targeted to kids. Although not one of the only positives, but a positive I can say is that the comedy is pretty good. I really like Diesel's line where he's like, "I'm a truckload of sausages." That's very silly. Yeah, I don't know. This really forced and not really natural dialogue just doesn't really do it for me. I'm sorry, it's not the greatest. It seems like a moral really only for kids, and I don't really see adults really getting much out of this. Oh, no, another complaint that I have with this episode, well, not really a complaint, but an interesting comment. Reg is in this episode. So this season is meant to take place after Tale of the Brave, and that movie hadn't been released yet, so a general kid or a parent probably wouldn't know who he is unless you watch the trailers. I don't even know if fans knew who he was. I don't know if he was in any of the trailers released around this time. If he was, then okay, but it's just kind of weird to me. Yeah. A fine episode, enjoyable, but I do feel like it was very forced and kiddish. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Again, not bad, but a bit forced. So, while that episode felt very aimed towards kids, Toad's Adventure, this episode feels like an episode made exclusively for the fans. This is probably one of the most well-known episodes of the CGI series. I would say it's probably one of the most popular. I remember back in the day, everybody was going crazy over the story. It has probably like over 1 billion views on YouTube. I used to watch it a lot. Before I went to school, wow, I just realized that almost 10 years ago I was in 4th grade, but that's crazy. But anyways, before school every morning, I would usually watch a couple of Thomas episodes before I left. And this is one of the ones that I used to watch on loop because I thought it was so great. It really does feel like a classic Thomas story with a great runaway, great action, great humor. It's fantastic. It's near perfection. I think this is probably, in terms of like story and writing, this is probably the best. It's hard to say because I don't remember a whole lot of episodes from the later seasons as well, so I don't know if there are any that succeed more in storytelling, but this one is really great. It's kind of like a jab at Busy going backwards. It's like, oh, what if the guard actually stayed in the train and did his job? So, props to the guard in this episode because he did a great job. Yeah. My only real gripes are to do with the visuals. The backgrounds, especially in Gordon's Hill, are very inconsistent. Gordon's Hill, like you can see in the render up here, it's supposed to be facing the ocean, but in some shots, there's like a big like hill and some like trees and stuff behind it. I really don't like when they do that. This happens a lot in Old Reliable Edward as well, which really gets on my nerves, but that's not a big deal. And I also don't really like Oliver and Toad's renders. I think they're actually like bad. Toad's isn't that bad. It's just a bit big, but Oliver's render is, it's awful. It's not good at all. I think that's probably one of the worst renders we've ever gotten for the show. But yeah, they don't even really bother to change it. Like when everybody was complaining about Duck's render, they went in and changed that a little bit. They made him smaller, but they didn't change Oliver, so whatever. But yeah, 11 out of 10. Great story. Love it to death. I will always love it. Before I end, I just want to say that I noticed in some episodes while editing, I forgot to reorder these in chronological order. So we'll do that here. So if these episodes want to be in chronological order, then they would go Not So Slow Coaches, Flatbeds of Fear, Disappearing Diesels, Toad's Adventure, and Thomas the Quarry Engine. Oh boy. Yeah, that's really it, you guys. Great release here. I will go ahead and say it. This is my favorite CGI release, not counting a special or anything, but in terms of like episode selection, I think this is probably the best you're gonna get. I think the next release, Engines to the Rescue, will have a really great selection. Signals Cross is also really good. As is, let's see. Oh, Tints on the Tracks is good. Ultimate Friendship Adventures, Christmas on Sodor. Yeah. Pretty good stories. And some pretty good releases themselves. So, I am so tired, but I hope you guys enjoy this episode. I am extremely burned out. I'm going to be recording some episodes back to back because I got to do some stuff with my sky backdrop in the back there for Turbo 711. So, yeah, if I sound very out of breath in the next few episodes, that's why. But yeah, I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you later. I'm going to take a nap now.